Well, it's over. The mud is finished now, isn't it? More than 100,000 festival goers heading home from Worthy Farm in Somerset, home to the Glastonbury Festival. This year saw acts like Dolly Parton, Arcade Fire, whoever Arcade Fire are, and Metallica perform. What were the highlights of the sold-out festival? And how can artists turn a profit from festival? I know exactly who Arcade Fire are. Our producer Pete's been going on about them for years, and it's just getting seriously dull now. Anyway, Shima Siddiqui joins us, digital manager at Modest Management. Hello, very nice to see you. And Marie-Alicia Chang, co-founder of Musicmetric, joins us. Well, hello, very nice to see you. Well, let me start off with you. This industry is changing very, very quickly, and what used to be a sideline is now the main profit driver, and this is live entertainment, isn't it? There are meteoric changes on how we buy our music going on as well, but how the artists make their money. Just talk us a little bit about the trends.
Well, I think that now everything is on demand. Fans want everything, you know, right away. So I think streaming is probably one of the biggest things.
Yeah.
I think with the rise of Spotify, with like Apple buying Beats, with Deezer, even iTunes streaming albums before they come out, I think that is really important.
Sounds stunningly archaic of me, but once again I rely on my 15-year-old son to explain all this to me. I can't remember which one of the accounts he's got, but he's got one of the ones you just mentioned, and he never buys any of his music, and he always just laughs and chortles and say how quaint when I download, I don't know, a Coldplay or whatever it is. Yes, all right, fair enough. Yeah, well, Sean, we don't all listen to heavy metal. Some of us like middle of the road. You know, we find it quite soothing after 3 hours with Jeffrey. But the point being is they never buy this music. They never actually buy the music as well. So how are the artists getting their revenues?
It's through touring and merchandise.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that's why, you know, these bands such as Metallica, Arcade Fire, they spend most of the year just touring the world. And I think fans really want an experience, and they'll get that in a live setting.
Sure.
And especially in such an iconic place such as Glastonbury, where most people go for the experience. And it's not really about trying to see every single band, but it's about taking everything in.
Sure. Marie-Alicia, tell us about your experience there. What's your expertise in this?
Well, Musicmetric tracks sort of like online consumer trends, so we know everything that's happening kind of with artists, and what the fans are doing, whether they're listening online, whether they're adding fans on different networks. And yeah, we've worked with a number of streaming partners, and it would back up the, you know, the point that was just made, which is I think it was an album released for Tom Odell, and one of the strongest drivers for streaming was actually his live appearances. So if you have an album to promote, touring, you know, I mean, it's very traditionally one of the best ways to drive album sales, but it's also now one of the best ways to drive revenues as well.
What's interesting about your business, I think, is you crunch huge amounts of data about what people are taking and not paying for, but also what they are taking and using and how they're downloading it. If the trend is clear to you at this point, and streaming does seem to stand out, what are the implications of this for the originators, the artists? Because they increasingly seem to be being forced to things like Glastonbury to make money, because they're not making it from the commercial sales via streaming or download. The platforms are winning at the expense of the creativity, it seems to me.
I mean, I would argue that there are, you know, two sides to that story, and that there are a lot of artists that do very well actually on streaming, because it's such a great global shop window that few independent or even rising artists would have had the chance to sort of get that kind of exposure before, especially when you think about how popular sharing playlist has become. And obviously those playlists before would have been you know, tapes that were shared, and there would have been no revenue generated through that, whereas now sharing playlists, of course, streams do generate revenue. So I think it's difficult. The biggest artists signed with the biggest labels are obviously going to have, you know, deals that work in their favour, but I think independents are, you know, increasingly working with good management to secure good deals, which mean, you know, because they're becoming more digital savvy, so they understand how important it is for that streaming revenue to be
you talk about creativity, but doesn't this also take the whole thing out of the hands of the A&R man? That the guy who sits in his bedroom and puts up a YouTube video that gets playlists can break into the mainstream without having to go through the traditional music. Is that too romantic a view, or does that happen?
I think more than ever we find that the people that come to us are really savvy. They use their ears to, you know, be very kind of aware of what they feel is resonating with people right now, but they also like to back up that with the kind of stats we have and say, right, if you've put some work into something, if you've been touring, how is that band actually doing? Are they generating a fan base? Because it's not just about saying, okay, I don't want to work with a band unless they've got streams. It's more about I'm working with a band, I'm invested in them, I love them, and I want to make sure that they're doing the best they can to engage with as much of an audience as we can. And that's really what our metrics help people do. And we do that now with film and TV as well, because funnily enough, people think the biggest issue in piracy is music, but actually it's a tiny percentage in terms of what gets pirated compared to movies and TV currently with this kind of golden TV age as well.
It's just why all these old bands are because they can't make revenues anymore out of their back catalogue. I can't believe, I'm so disappointed in you. I've only just met you, but you said Metallica was your favourite act at Glastonbury.
Yeah.
I can take it from these two. No, seriously, Shima, I can take it from these two old dinosaurs, but really? What?
Well, do you know what? I'm not actually a fan, but they blew me away.
Wow.
Yeah, I thought they were great.
It's quite a There's a picture of you in your old days with your old hair.
Yeah, should we have a look?
Yeah, look at Jeff in the old days.
This is what I used to look like.
That's a genuine photo. There's me.
It's interesting how we diverged musically.
Yeah, we did, didn't we?
At that
I went
point.
down the acoustic route with more mellow stuff. You know.
Was that you 30 years ago or over the weekend?
To be fair, although of course that's a mock-up, I genuinely did have hair not a million miles away from that. So it was more kind of a casual kind of style in the
What's interesting though is all these old bands who were rock and rollers, I mean AC/DC, even Metallica at one point, Pink Floyd, all said they wouldn't go the digital route. And they've all ultimately caved in at some point and said, if we're going to have a future, then it needs to be a digital future.
Well, we've seen that Metallica has the largest online fan base, but in terms of acts that add the most fans, some people may not be so pleased to hear it was Ed Sheeran that did pretty well. You know, he's done exceptionally well, and he was the one that's talked about not minding piracy, in fact, so he'll be pleased.
But Metallica are also doing an instrument in Switzerland. They're doing a concert in a week or two's time, and if you buy a ticket, you get to vote what goes on the plailist.
We talk about those,
Nice.
the fans. The fans are being crowded out by the price of this. It's all corporate now, isn't it, though? Because the cost of these tickets are so expensive. £107 to see Robbie Williams. I mean, you'd pay that, wouldn't you?
Okay. I'd happily pay never to see Robbie Williams again.
Ladies, thank you very much indeed for your time. Shima, very nice to meet you, even if you do like Metallica like these two chats as well. Shima Siddiqui, nice to see you. Marie-Alicia Chang as well, lovely to see you as well. Thank you very much indeed.
That's it, Sean. We've got to say goodbye to you. Thanks very much for being with the programme.